Struggling to manage your computer storage or secure your system like a pro? What if you could master IT support skills in just a few steps without the overwhelm? In this video, I'll show you how to shrink partitions, create new volumes, and enforce strong password policies like a certified IT technician. Whether you're optimizing storage or boosting security, these are the exact tools and techniques used by professionals. Ready to take control of your system? Let's dive in. Welcome to this new course, where we're going to start continuing what we haven't seen in computer management. To access it, simply search for the word management and open the application. Computer management. In the storage tab, we have only one item, which is disk management. This is where you can manage the computer's disks. Basically, it's the same as the disk part command, except that here we have a graphical interface. That is, it allows us to resize existing partitions. By the way, you can also access this menu directly by pressing the Windows plus R keys and typing diskmgmt.msc. On the second VM we created, we end up with a disk 0 and a CD-ROM drive, which is, of course, virtual. On disk 0, we can see a total of 3 partitions, so the boot one is the C drive. Well, we're going to try to do the same thing as what we did on the first VM, which is to take 10 gigabytes of this partition to create a new one, which we'll use to store files. That is, it will not be a bootable partition. Here, as we can see, disk 0 is divided into 3 partitions. The system reserved partition, which typically stores the Windows Boot Manager and the boot configuration data BCD. The Windows Boot Manager is what loads the Windows boot, and the boot configuration data is where the Windows boot configuration is stored. Then, the partition next to it is the one that contains the operating system. That is, all system files like the Windows folder or the Program folder. And the last one is called a recovery partition, which allows you to give access to recovery options, but also troubleshooting. We will therefore mainly work with the volume C, shrink volume. To start, we'll have to take 10 gigabytes away from it. Here are the steps to reduce this volume. First, right-click on the C partition and click Shrink Volume. Then, as we want to take away 10 gigabytes from it, we will enter 10,000 in the amount of space to be reduced and click on Shrink. We now find ourselves with a new partition of a little less than 10 gigabytes, which is not assigned. In fact, if you remember, it's like doing a shrink desired 1000 in a command prompt with the diskpart tool. Enable partition. Now that we've recovered 10 gigabytes from the system partition, we're going to have to enable it in order to use it. To do this, simply right-click on the new volume and click on New Simple Volume. We will then have a small wizard, which will open to create a volume. If we do the following, we will be able to choose the disk space we want to allocate to it. In our example, we're going to give it all of the available space. But if you want, you could have put, for example, 5,000 megabytes and created a second volume of 5,000 megabytes to have a total of 2 disks of 5 gigabytes each. In the next step, it will be assigned the letter E. Then, we're going to format this new volume as NTFS and name it as Save. And finally, all that's left is to click on Finish after having checked the parameters we entered. And automatically, Windows will raise the player and we can use it immediately. If we open the Windows Explorer and click on this PC and well in the devices and drives, we can see that we now have 2 hard drives. 1 disk reserve for the system, and the new one we just created to back up your data, services and applications. Now, let's move on to the last tab of computer management, which is services and applications. Services. This is where it is possible to stop or restart a service. If you click on Services, it brings up all the services of Windows. Even if there are many services that will not be useful to you, it will not make you gain much in optimization. That is to say, if you disable 30 unused services, well, you may gain 30 megabytes of memory usage. If your goal is really to save resources on your memory, then it's better to lean towards removing unnecessary programs. WMI control. And the last service is the WMI control. This is a set of Windows services, which can be found in the folder c./windows/system32/WBEM. It's not something you'll use, and it's not part of the support technician program either. So there's no need to necessarily go into details. And to be honest, I don't even know what it's for. Local security policy. Before we finish the course, we're going to talk about local security policy, which helps improve password security. By using a strong password policy, the user will have to set a more complicated password, which will make them much less vulnerable. This is an effective way to easily improve account security. To open this menu, you must first open a Run window. You can do this in two ways. Either by searching for the word Execute and clicking on Execute, or with the shortcut Windows key, plus the letter R. Then you only have to run the command secpol dmsc password policy. Once the local security strategy window is open, we will go to Security Settings, Account Policies, and Password Policy, enabling complexity requirements. To begin with, we will activate an obligation to comply with certain requirements in terms of the password that the user will have to choose. To do this, simply double-click on Password Must Meet Complexity Requirements. As we can see, it's disabled. So just turn it on and apply. If you go to the Explain tab, you will get all the information about the new password requirement. Minimum length. Then, to further increase the password difficulty, you can increase the minimum password length. The longer the password, the more secure it is. To do this, simply click on Minimum Password Length and enter a minimum value. For the example, I decide to put at least 10 characters. Maximum password age. Another important detail is to impose the change of the password every X time. For example, every 90 days. To do this, simply click on Maximum Password Age and change the setting to 90 days. Verification of the policy application. Now, to check that my new password strategy works, if I go back to the computer's management and I create a new user, then I should imperatively enter a password of more than 10 characters at least. For example, if I enter the password 1234, then I would immediately have an error to inform me that my password does not comply with the new strategy that is in place.